reaction to what's a pretty drastic move by the Victorian government to shut down the border. Do you think it's the right call?
Well, I think it's important that we don't second-guess some of these decisions. Just listening to Premier Andrews there, you can tell, he didn't take this decision lightly at all. These are very difficult, very complex decisions. It's important that they're based on the best available medical and expert advice, as this appears to be. So I think it's important that we recognise that the outbreak has been really concerning, and decisions that no Premier or Chief Minister or indeed Prime Minister would like to be taking in these sorts of difficult times are being taken. And I think that people will understand that although we do want economies and communities open up when that's safe to do so, we need to take these kinds of decisions from time to time to limit the spread.
Now, this comes as we had this significant report released by Deloitte Access Economics about the economic impact of the coronavirus shutdowns. That has been the dual response from the National Cabinet since the coronavirus pandemic began, to manage the health impacts as well as the economic impacts. What did you make of what the report said about potentially Victoria really dragging us down by having such strict lockdowns?
Oh, clearly the shutdown of the economy, whether it's in Victoria or over recent months right around Australia, clearly that's having a devastating economic impact, and that matters a great deal to people's jobs, the way that they can provide for their loved ones and put food on the table and pay the rent. So, obviously there have been some really concerning developments, the economic consequences of some of these necessary decisions to limit the spread of the virus itself. But the Deloitte Access Economics report made, in my view, three really important points. The first one, the government needs a plan for jobs in the recovery. The absence of a plan to now has been very costly. Secondly, they've joined really a chorus of views from the Reserve Bank and others which says if you pull the support out of the economy too soon, that will cruel the recovery. And the third important point they made was that the best way to fix the budget is actually to fix the economy. If we don't get on top of the economic aspects of this, if we don't focus on a plan for jobs, then the impact on the budget in the coming months and years will be devastating as well.
Labor's called for an increase to a lot of the government support, including extending JobKeeper to casuals, an extra 1.1 million of them, extending it to foreign workers like the Donata workers. That would have also impacted the budget bottom line, increased the deficit. In light of the Deloitte Access Economics report, do you think that that would have gone a step too far?
Oh, of course not. I mean, and I don't. The best way to understand our position is that if the government's original instinct, which was to try and keep people connected to their jobs, is the right one, and we think it was, then you need to make sure that you apply that quickly enough and broadly enough to make a difference in the labour market. The unemployment queue is longer than it needs to be because of the way that the government bungled what should have been welcome support via the JobKeeper program. But again, Deloitte Access Economics says the best way to fix the budget is to fix the economy. Too many people have been left out and left behind when it comes to some of these important programs. We've also said, importantly, that there should be ways to better target this support. There should be ways to taper it. But don't just snap it back in the last weekend of September, because as Deloitte pointed out again today, the Reserve Bank and others have pointed out previously, that would cruel the recovery and it would cost jobs. We can't have the same kind of mismanagement coming out of this recession as we saw going into the recession. The uncertainty that the government's creating by not coming clean on the future of JobKeeper is already costing jobs. We need them to clear that up so that people know what the future looks like. Businesses know what they need to do to try and maintain as many workers as possible.
But you are calling on that extended spending for JobKeeper, so that will increase the deficit, will it not?
Well, there might also be ways, Annalise, to better target the payment. So, for example, we've said repeatedly that if someone was making $100 or $200 a week, they're now making $750 a week on JobKeeper, then clearly there are opportunities there to wind it back. So there are swings and roundabouts. But the overall point that we're making is that it makes very little economic sense when Deloitte, the Reserve Bank, the government itself are saying that unemployment will be higher for longer. Makes very little economic sense to try and be in a rush to pull this support out of the economy. We need to make sure that the priority is jobs. We need to make sure that this isn't a jobless recovery where some people gallop ahead but most people are left behind. That's our objective here, and so we need to do what's necessary. to invest in those jobs so that we can maintain support until the recovery gathers pace.
On superannuation, we've seen comments from David Murray at AMP. He joins a chorus of people saying that this superannuation guarantee shouldn't be extended beyond as it's currently legislated. Do you agree? Should we be considering it, especially considering this industry super report saying that it will impact on wages negatively if we do go with that increase of super guarantee to 12%?
Look, I don't support calls to freeze the superannuation guarantee again. Remember, this government's frozen it multiple times already, and that wasn't a recipe for more investment or higher wages. It was a recipe we saw after that stagnant wages and weak investment and weak growth. So I don't accept that that link is necessarily there. And I don't think the answer to the problems that we have in the economy right now in this first recession in 3 decades is to undermine people's retirement incomes. I think if we want to support business, we need to be looking at the future of JobKeeper. We need to get some certainty into energy policy, and there might be other policies that we can look at as well. But we don't want to see people's retirement incomes diminished. We don't think that's the answer to what's going on here. They've been diminished before and attacked and cut before when it comes to the superannuation guarantee, and it didn't deliver the kinds of economic gains that the Coalition now seems to think would happen if they froze it again.
And just finally, would you like to see Australian banks commit to deferring loan repayments beyond that September deadline?
Well, we've been in discussions with the banks about the future of the support that they are providing to families and businesses in the economy, the welcome support that they've been providing. And one of the reasons we've been calling for some more certainty over JobKeeper and the other government supports is because a lot of these other decisions will necessarily flow from what the government's doing. So clearly there is a need for some kind of ongoing support from the banks. They are working on that and considering that, and that's appropriate, but we need some clarity from the government end as well.